Have you ever stood in the supermarket aisle looking at a bag of basmati rice that costs twice as much as standard white rice, thinking you're buying wholesome quality, only to end up with a pot of sticky, gluey mush that smells like wet cardboard? Or worse, have you been serving your toddlers organic brown rice every night, assuming it is the ultimate health choice, completely unaware that you might be exposing them to heavy metals at levels exceeding safety limits for children? It is a quiet trick played on millions of Aussie shoppers across Coles, Woolworths, ALDI, and Asian grocers. You think you are paying for premium Himalayan tradition, but what sits inside those glossy pouches is often a mix of high-speed industrial processing, marketing loopholes, corporate cost-cutting, and elevated levels of naturally occurring toxins that nobody warns you about on the back of the packet. By the end of this investigation, you will know why your Friday night curry rice tastes completely flat compared to 10 years ago, how a massive corporate takeover changed Australia's favourite supermarket Basmati brand, which health halo products carry the highest contamination risks, and how to spot sneaky sourcing tricks used to shift cheap, fractured grain under premium labels. I will also clear up a terrifying viral recall rumour that had Aussies throwing out good pantry supplies, and reveal 4 genuinely fantastic Basmati brands sitting on Australian shelves, including one budget hero that solves a massive problem for smaller households. But before naming brands, we need to crack open the science of what makes Basmati special, and why modern industrial farming has quietly gutted its quality. To understand how the market broke down, you have to realize that genuine Basmati isn't just long-grain rice with a fancy name. It is the champagne of the grain world. Traditionally grown in the unique soil and climate of the Indo-Gangetic Plain at the foot of the Himalayas, true Basmati possesses a specific genetic blueprint. It contains a high concentration of a natural aroma compound called 2-acetyl-1-pyrroline, the exact chemical that gives fresh buttered popcorn and pandan leaves their irresistible smell. When authentic Basmati cooks, its starch structure behaves unlike almost any other grain. Instead of expanding sideways into a sticky paste, a high-quality Basmati grain expands lengthways, stretching to more than double its raw size while remaining firm, separate, and dry. The secret behind that performance has always been time and patience. Historically, harvest grains were aged in temperature-controlled granaries for 12 to 24 months. During aging, internal moisture slowly drops, natural fats stabilize, and starch proteins harden. This natural drying prevents the rice from releasing excess surface starch into your cooking water, ensuring every grain stands proud and distinct. So what changed? Corporate greed and industrial scale took over. Modern global food conglomerates don't want to hold inventory in storage facilities for 2 years waiting for nature to age it that kills profit margins and clogs supply chains. Instead, much of the rice hitting Australian supermarket shelves today is force-dried using massive industrial hot air blowers or artificially parboiled under steam pressure to accelerate hardening. When you rush aging, the delicate volatile oils that create that famous nutty aroma evaporate before the bag is sealed. You end up with a grain that looks visually long, but the moment it hits hot water, it releases a cloud of loose starch, clumps together, and smells like nothing. To make matters worse, global trade laws allow companies to blend high-grade basmati with cheaper, unaged long-grain varieties or lower-tier rice strains. Under Australian food labelling regulations, as long as a packet meets basic food standards, distributors can pack a bag with grains harvested from multiple countries, batch mix them together, and cover the front in pictures of snowy mountain peaks to trick you into assuming it was harvested by traditional Himalayan farmers. And then there is the dark side of the soil that the health food industry sweeps under the rug: inorganic arsenic contamination. Rice plants are unique because they are cultivated in flooded paddy fields. Submerged conditions create an anaerobic environment in the soil that turns mineral compounds into water-soluble forms. Rice roots act like hyper-efficient sponges, drawing up inorganic arsenic, a known Group 1 human carcinogen, far more aggressively than wheat, barley, or oats. When the University of Sheffield ran peer-reviewed lab tests on rice purchased directly from supermarket shelves, their findings sent shockwaves through food safety circles. A staggering proportion of commercial rice samples exceeded the strict legal safety threshold set specifically for infant and young child food, sitting at 0.1 milligrams per kilogram. Small children absorb heavy metals at much higher rates relative to their body weight, making this a serious issue for parents feeding their kids rice-based meals. Here is the absolute kicker that catches out conscious shoppers in the organic aisle. Organic brown basmati often contains significantly higher levels of inorganic arsenic than cheap white basmati sitting right next to it. Why? because inorganic arsenic accumulates heavily in the outer bran layer of the grain. When processors polish brown rice into white rice, they physically strip away that outer bran skin, removing up to 80% of concentrated arsenic. Furthermore, because certified organic farms cannot use synthetic chemical weed killers, fields are kept flooded longer to drown out weeds naturally. That extended flooding creates the exact conditions that maximize arsenic uptake from the earth. The health halo surrounding organic brown rice blinds consumers to physical reality dictated by soil chemistry. Now that you understand grain aging, starch breakdown, and heavy metal accumulation, let us look at 9 products currently sitting in Australian pantries that fail to live up to their promises. Number 9 on our list is Sunrice medium grain rice, available in every Woolworths and Coles across the country. Sunrice is an icon of Australian agriculture, owned by Rice Growers Limited, a homegrown cooperative trusted since the 1950s. The packaging promises a versatile grain for everyday family meals, and at around $3.50 for a single kilogram bag, it seems like a straightforward purchase. But here is the problem. Many shoppers buy this medium grain variety expecting it to perform like a fluffy, separate, long-grain basmati, only to end up with a sticky, starch-heavy mass. The high amylopectin content in medium grain rice means starch gelatinizes rapidly during cooking and releases a thick coating into liquid. Independent consumer tests by organizations like Choice point out that using the wrong rice variety for classic curry or pilau dishes results in an overly dense texture that deadens delicate spices. At around 35 cents per serve, you are paying full retail price for a domestic crop that lacks the natural elongation or distinct floral aroma of true aged basmati. A verified customer review summed up the frustration perfectly, noting that no matter how many times you rinse it, it cooks up like glue rather than light, separate grains. It is a decent option for rice pudding or risotto, but trying to use it for an authentic curry night is a recipe for culinary disappointment. Number 8 is Tilda broken basmati, often spotted in specialty grocers and wholesale sacks at Harris Farm markets or Asian supermarkets. Tilda was once an independent household favorite, built on strict quality controls. But since its acquisition by Spanish multinational Ebro Foods in 2019 for roughly £270 million, product segmentation has become aggressive. The label on this bag is transparent, stating it contains broken basmati grains. Broken rice is a legitimate ingredient in traditional South Asian cooking, ideal for quick-cooking kheer or thick rice porridges. However, the trap for Australian shoppers comes down to consumer confusion. Many buyers grab these bags off the bottom shelf, assuming they found a heavily discounted version of Tilda's iconic long-grain rice, only to discover in the saucepan that fractured grains leak immense amounts of surface starch during boiling. Food scientists at Food Standards Australia New Zealand highlight that the physical surface area of a broken grain is significantly larger relative to its volume, causing rapid water absorption and starch breakdown. The result is soft, wet slush rather than distinct spires. At roughly $4.50 a kilo, it is barely cheaper than standard intact grains, making it a terrible compromise for everyday cooking. A prominent Sydney catering chef publicly warned home cooks that using broken basmati for biryani guarantees your dish will turn into soggy mash. If you buy this by accident, expecting premium long rice, you are paying top dollar for manufacturing byproducts. Number 7 brings us to Woolworths macro-certified organic brown basmati. Sitting in the health food aisle with its clean green labeling, this product promises 100% certified organic brown basmati rice, positioning itself as the gold standard for health-conscious families willing to spend over $6 a kilo. But this is where science hits hard. Peer-reviewed studies from the University of Sheffield, corroborated by environmental toxicology research, show brown rice consistently retains higher levels of inorganic arsenic because the element accumulates naturally in the outer bran layer. Because organic farming avoids synthetic weed killers, fields are kept flooded longer to suppress weeds naturally, accelerating root absorption of water-soluble heavy metals. When tested against food safety benchmarks, samples of organic brown rice frequently exceed the conservative 0.1 milligram per kilogram threshold established for infant foods. While healthy adults process trace amounts safely, parents routinely feeding this to toddlers under the assumption that it is the purest choice are unaware of the underlying chemical reality. At double the price of standard white basmati, you pay a heavy premium for a health halo that does not match lab data. Pediatric nutrition consultants emphasize that for young children, potential heavy metal load in unpolished brown rice outweighs modest fiber benefits. The most expensive green-certified bag in the aisle might actually be the least appropriate choice for your baby's bowl. Number 6 is Maharani Premium Basmati rice, commonly stocked in independent Asian grocers and selected IGA stores. Packaging features shimmering golden fonts, traditional artwork, and bold promises of pristine Himalayan origin and extended natural aging. However, when you look closely at the fine print, checkable evidence regarding actual aging duration or single origin batch tracking is non-existent. Aging is the most critical factor in basmati production. Properly aged grains lose internal moisture over 12 to 18 months, allowing starch structure to set so it cooks long, dry, and fluffy. Rushed, heat-dried grains retain high internal moisture and collapse into a soft, clumpy mass when heated. Consumers paying upwards of $5 a kilo for Maharani report massive batch-to-batch inconsistency. One bag cooks reasonably well, while the next batch turns into a sticky, fragrantless heap. You pay a premium price for a romantic mountain fantasy on the front, while actual quality control behind the scenes operates like an unpredictable lottery. If you are realizing how much marketing fluff is hiding in your pantry, hit that subscribe button right now. We have plenty more brutal product breakdowns coming your way. Number 5 on our list is Trophy Basmati rice, packed by Indo-European Foods and distributed across Australian independent supermarkets and specialty stores. Featuring an impressive seal of quality, Trophy presents itself as an award-winning option, but physical contents inside the bag tell a different story. Consumer feedback and batch inspections reveal a high proportion of unevenly sized grains and microfractures within the bag. When you cook a mixture of whole long grains and small grain fragments together, they absorb water at radically different speeds. By the time larger grains cook through to the center, smaller fragments have overcooked and disintegrated into starch paste that binds the entire pot together. No amount of careful rinsing, soaking, or precise water measuring fixes a structural defect existing inside the bag before turning on the stove. At approximately $4.80 per kilogram, Trophy charges top-tier prices for a product that lacks uniform grain integrity required of genuine luxury basmati. A commercial cook noted in a product review that cooking Trophy rice requires constant damage control on the cooktop just to prevent it from turning into wallpaper paste. The Trophy on the label is purely decorative. Performance in the pan is substandard. Number 4 takes us straight to supermarket own brand basmati rice from Coles, Woolworths, and ALDI. Priced between $2.50 and $3 per kilogram, these generic clear window bags look like an absolute bargain. But the hidden trap here is contract packing. Supermarket chains do not grow or age their own rice. They award short-term supply contracts to whichever commercial commodity trader offers the lowest wholesale price at tender time. That means the bag of store-brand basmati you purchase in January might be sourced from a single estate in Punjab, while the bag you buy in July could be a completely different crop from another region, processed under different standards. There is zero consistency in grain length, aroma, or required cooking time from one month to the next. You are effectively gambling with every single purchase. While fine for a basic midweek side dish where texture does not matter, relying on store-brand basmati for a special dinner party is a gamble. You are not buying a consistent product. You are buying whichever low-cost supplier won this quarter's corporate pricing tender. Number 3 is Salam Basmati rice, owned by Surya Foods and frequently found on deep discount in Australian clearance aisles. Salam is a classic victim of permanent sale psychology. Bright yellow discount stickers make it look like an unbelievable bargain, marked down from an inflated retail price week after week. But when a product lives on permanent markdown, it is a clear commercial signal that shoppers avoid buying it at full price. Laboratory analysis of lower-grade basmati brands shows higher moisture content and a significantly lower concentration of 2-acetyl-1-pyrroline, the natural compound responsible for that iconic basmati scent. In the saucepan, Salam delivers a flat, neutral taste with high release of surface starch that causes grains to stick together. At $3.20 a kilo on sale, it is undeniably cheap, but you receive a stripped-back grain lacking the signature aromatic character that makes basmati worth buying. An ironic customer review summarized it best. It is cheap rice that tastes precisely like cheap rice. Real basmati earns its place on your plate through rich aroma and distinct texture, not through a bright sticker telling you how much money you supposedly saved. Number 2 is Lal Killa Basmati rice in its familiar traditional sack, widely distributed across Australian cash and carry outlets, Asian grocers, and major supermarkets. Lal Killa enjoys a massive, loyal following among big families buying in 5 kilograms or 10 kilograms bulk bags based on decades of brand recognition. However, inspection of the back label on standard production runs reveals a telling detail. It is explicitly stated as a product of more than one country, or a blend of multiple basmati origins. While blending harvest allows distributors to stabilize supply chains and maximize profit margins when crop yields fluctuate, it is the enemy of kitchen consistency. Grains grown in different soil profiles under different climate conditions possess varying starch densities and absorb water at different rates. When combined in a single batch, one origin grain might reach perfection while another remains chalky or breaks down completely. Long-term buyers report that one sack of Lal Killer turns out long and fluffy, while the next bag bought a month later cooks up mushy and dull. When paying over $25 for a large sack, you deserve absolute reliability, not a multi-country blend that changes performance with every harvest cycle. And that brings us to number 1, ALDI Just Organic Long Grain White Rice, selling for an ultra-low price point that attracts thousands of budget-focused shoppers every day. Why does this basic long-grain product take the top spot on our breakdown? Because of the physiological reality of what heavy industrial refining does to basic staple food. To achieve such an aggressive price point while maintaining organic certification, the grain undergoes extensive mechanical milling that strips away the outer bran, allurone layer, and germ, leaving behind almost pure refined endosperm starch. When boiled, this highly polished starch breaks down rapidly in the digestive tract, resulting in a high glycemic index response, causing sharp blood sugar spikes, followed by rapid energy crashes. For millions of Australians managing pre-diabetes, insulin resistance, or metabolic health, consuming heavily refined white starch as a daily staple is a significant dietary drawback. While completely safe and filling a belly in a tight financial week, the hidden cost of relying on ultra-processed white grain shows up slowly over time in your overall metabolic health. The cheapest bag in the aisle often carries a long-term cost that never appears on the register receipt. Before we get to the brands we actually rate, let us clear the air on a viral recall rumor that had people unnecessarily emptying their cupboards. You may have seen dramatic claims circulating online that Ben's original rice was recalled over stones found in packets. That recall, issued in October 2025 over small stones in ready rice pouches, was strictly a United States affair, handled by American food safety authorities affecting American shops. No such recall was ever issued in Australia by Food Standards Australia New Zealand. British and Australian households were never under an official recall for that product. It is a perfect example of an overseas story being repackaged as a local scare, and something worth double-checking before you panic. That said, there is a genuine Australian reason to know what you buy. National food crime authorities frequently investigate schemes repackaging cheaper grains into premium Basmati bags. That is a real, verified concern, and the strongest argument going for sticking with trusted, traceable brands bought from reliable sources. Now, whatever rice ends up in your cupboard, there is a simple, practical way to reduce inorganic arsenic in almost any of it. First, rinse your rice thoroughly before cooking through several changes of water until it runs clear. That alone shifts a surprising amount of surface residue. Then, rather than cooking it in a tight, measured amount of water that all gets absorbed, cook it in plenty of water like pasta and drain the excess away at the end. Research shows this approach removes a substantial share of inorganic arsenic while keeping most goodness in the grain. Soaking rice beforehand and tipping that soaking water away also helps. It costs nothing but a little water and extra minutes, and is especially worth doing for rice served to young children. Right, here comes the part that made watching this far worth it. We have dragged industry tricks into the light, cut through romantic mountain marketing, and exposed why so many pantries are filled with flat, sticky disappointment. Now it is time to talk about the absolute champions sitting on Australian shelves right now. Genuine, high-performing Basmati brands that respect your money, honour traditional aging processes, and turn every single meal into a masterpiece. Starting off our recommendations at an accessible price point is India Gate Basmati Rice Feast, available widely across Woolworths, Coles, and independent international supermarkets. Milled by KRBL Limited, one of the world's most respected rice processors, India Gate is the secret weapon used behind the scenes by top-tier Indian restaurants across Sydney and Melbourne. What makes this brand an absolute winner for Aussie households is its strict adherence to traditional Indo-Gangetic sourcing combined with genuine, temperature-controlled aging. The moment these grains touch boiling water, your kitchen fills with that authentic, rich, sweet, nutty aroma that modern corporate brands have lost. The grains elongate dramatically, stretching to nearly 3 times their raw length without bursting or curling, leaving light, feathery spires that stay completely separate on the plate. At around $4 to $4.50 a kilo, it costs barely $1 more than supermarket store brands, yet the quality jump is astronomical. For families managing diabetes or watching blood sugar spikes, India Gate also offers an exceptional golden cellar parboiled variant. Through gentle steam pressure treatment prior to milling, natural nutrients from the outer husk are forced deep into the center of the grain, hardening the starch structure and drastically lowering its glycemic index, while ensuring the rice never turns sticky, no matter how you cook it. It is reliable, delicious, and an absolute steal for everyday cooking. Next up is Daawat traditional Basmati rice, packed by LT Foods and stocked prominently in Coles, Woolworths, and Harris Farm markets. Daawat built its international reputation on pure grain integrity and advanced multi-stage sorting technology. Unlike budget brands that pad out bags with broken fragments, Daawat guarantees uniform grain length across every single batch. The brand uses a specialized OctaQ quality testing protocol that verifies grain purity, moisture content, and authentic aging before a single bag is sealed. In the kitchen, Daawat behaves like a dream. It absorbs flavors and cooking broths effortlessly while maintaining a firm, delicate bite that holds up perfectly under heavy curries or elaborate biryanis. There is zero heavy surface starch paste, meaning you don't spend 20 minutes scrubbing grains under a cold tap to prevent a sticky mess. At roughly $5.50 per kilogram, it represents the sweet spot between mainstream supermarket availability and genuine luxury performance. Food critics and professional chefs routinely praise Daawat for absolute consistency. You can buy a bag in Brisbane or Perth today and get the exact same aromatic, dry, separate result you experienced 6 months ago. It is no-nonsense, high-grade Basmati that simply works every single time. Moving into the true luxury tier, we have Kohinoor extra long, extra fragrant Basmati rice, available at Coles, Woolworths, and specialized Asian grocers. Kohinoor Platinum is aged naturally for a full 18 to 24 months in dedicated facilities, allowing internal starch to mature completely and natural moisture levels to drop to optimal low thresholds. That extra year of patient granary aging is something industrial producers refuse to pay for, but you taste the difference in every single spoonful. When cooked, Kohinoor grains stretch into impossibly long, slender needles that remain completely distinct, displaying a pristine, pearlescent sheen and an intense natural floral fragrance that leaves cheap imitations in the dust. Independent culinary panel testing consistently ranks Kohinoor at the top of the table for grain elongation, aroma retention, and mouthfeel. At approximately $6.50 to $7.00 per kilogram, it is priced at a premium, but every cent is justified by the sheer sensory experience it delivers. If hosting a special weekend feast or cooking a classic pilau for guests, this is the bottle of fine champagne you pull out to guarantee complete culinary perfection. Finally, taking our top overall spot for solving a massive real-world problem for Australian shoppers is Royal Authentic Basmati rice. Available in Woolworths, Coles, and independent specialty stores, Royal solves an issue that single pensioners, students, and smaller households have complained about for years. Historically, if you wanted high-grade, single-origin, properly aged Basmati, you were forced to carry home a giant 10-kilogram or 20-kilogram cloth sack from a wholesale importer, an impossible task if you lack storage space or cook for just 1 or 2 people. Royal takes world-class, naturally aged Himalayan Basmati and packs it into convenient, resealable 1-kilogram and 2-kilogram pouches that fit perfectly onto standard pantry shelves. The grain itself is exceptional, sourced exclusively from traditional farming regions, rigorously aged, and processed without chemical additives or forced heat drying. It cooks up extraordinarily fluffy with a clean, sweet, roasted nut flavor profile and zero clumping. At around 5.00 a kilo in a manageable size, Royal proves you don't need to buy in industrial bulk or break your back carrying heavy sacks just to enjoy authentic, uncompromised Basmati rice at home. Now that you know which bags deserve a spot in your trolley and which ones belong strictly on the shelf, here are 6 golden rules to make sure you never get fooled in the supermarket rice aisle again. First, always look for explicit statements of natural aging on packaging. Green flags like aged for 12 to 24 months guarantee starch has set so grains cook dry and separate. Second, treat product of more than one country as an immediate red flag on premium Basmati. Multi-origin blends mean inconsistent cooking times and hit-and-miss batches. Third, check grain integrity through clear plastic packaging windows. If you see a high proportion of cracked pieces, dust, or broken fragments, walk away immediately because it will turn into mush on your stove. Fourth, do not be seduced by romantic mountain artwork or golden seals. If the bag does not name a specific origin region like Punjab or the Indo-Gangetic Plain, you are paying extra for marketing fluff. Fifth, if you regularly feed toddlers or young children, opt for well-rinsed white basmati over brown varieties to minimize inorganic arsenic exposure from flooded paddy soils. Sixth, always check the unit price per kilogram at Coles or Woolworths. Two's aged basmati rarely sits below $4 a kilo unless it is on a genuine clearance markdown. When you step back and look at the entire commercial rice industry, the pattern becomes crystal clear. Major food conglomerates cut costs by rushing natural aging times, blending cheap multi-origin crops, and relying on nostalgic brand trust built decades ago by entirely different owners. But as a shopper, the moment you stop buying based on glossy front-of-pack promises and start reading origin lines, aging claims, and grain integrity, power shifts completely back into your hands. You do not have to accept gluey, flat, disappointing rice ever again. Thank you so much for joining us on this investigation. If this video helped you make sense of what is sitting in your pantry, please share it with a friend or family member who loves a good curry night. They deserve to know what they are pouring into their saucepan. Drop a comment right below and tell me, which of these brands is sitting in your pantry right now? And have you noticed that fading aroma over the years? Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you do not miss our upcoming expose where we take a magnifying glass to olive oil labels across Australian supermarkets. Until next time, stay sharp, trust the science over the branding, and protect your plate.